Hey there, everyone. Mr. Lewis here again, ready to continue our exploration of religion today with section 4.2, which is called the structure of religion. And our focus today is not just on these big singular religions such as Christianity or Islam or Buddhism, but also within each of those religions, the different branches and denominations of those faiths. So, to better understand this whole structure, let's dive into the notes. Okay, structure of religion. Let's take a look. First, we're going to analyze universalizing religions, and then we'll dive into ethnic religions. So, this basic format looks like this. You start with an individual religion at its origin. It then evolves into multiple branches. A branch is a large fundamental division within that religion. You can see the first branch that was formed in Christianity was the Orthodox branch, and this was actually labeled the Great Schism or Great Split of 1054. A denomination within a branch is a unification of a number of local congregations, right? So within a sort of regional format, there are denominations that develop over time, and a congregation in itself is just a local assembly of people who come together to worship. So you kind of have this basic format that we're going to apply to some of the major religions around the globe. First of all, Christianity. Christianity has three major branches: Roman Catholicism, Protestantism, and the Orthodox branch. And within each of these, there are different ways of celebrating those faiths, right? But these are the three major fundamental branches of Christianity. Europe is geographically divided with these three branches, and it's very clear when you look at the map. You can see that there are clusters, right? And over time, that could be because of cultural uniqueness. It could be because of diffusion. There are many different reasons for that. You could also make the argument of people seeking out those who have similar faiths. We see that people who migrate often move to areas where their religion is the predominant religion. So there are many different reasons for that, but it's pretty clear that Catholics are the most widespread in Europe. Protestantism tends to be clustered in northern Europe, so getting up into the Scandinavia region, up in northern Germany, places like that. Protestantism is the predominant faith that we find there. And then Orthodox Christianity is mainly located in Eastern Europe. So the closer to Russia, basically, you get in Europe, the more predominantly Orthodox Christianity is found. And you can see that on this map. So in yellow here, okay, you can see Portugal to Spain to France down into Italy, mostly Roman Catholic. But in purple, up in the Scandinavia region, in Denmark, Germany, much of the United Kingdom, we have Orthodox. Now, you notice over here in Ireland, right, Roman Catholicism. That was a major reason for some of the historical conflicts that have taken place up in the UK. It was based on that religious split that you can see here on this map. And then, of course, as I mentioned over here in the east, as you get closer and closer to Russia, here's Ukraine, for example, okay, we have much more Orthodox Christianity that's found. And then again, there are different denominations of the Orthodox faith, right? But if we just categorize it into that major branch, it is predominantly found in this part of Europe, in this part of the world. And down here in North Africa and into the Middle East is where we see mostly Islam. As we look closer at Northern Ireland, you can see that there are some major divisions. So in some local communities, it's 80 to 100% Roman Catholic, whereas you can see in some areas, it's 0 to 19% Roman Catholic. And these splits, whether it was local like this or on a bigger regional level, led to a lot of division over time in those areas, and sadly, a lot of violence as well. So in the United States, just over 70% of the country is celebrating practicing some form of Christianity. The biggest group is evangelical Protestantism at just over a quarter of the population. Just over a fifth, or close to 21% of the population, is Roman Catholic. Mainline Protestants account for just under 15%. Historically black Christian churches account for about 6.5%. Mormons, about 1.6%, and other forms of Christianity, about 1.7%. Outside of Christianity, we have unaffiliated individuals, so agnostic, atheist, or just otherwise irreligious in some way, but unaffiliated nonetheless, just under 23%. Sikhism, Taoism, about 2.5%. Judaism, just under 2%. Islam, just under 1%. Buddhism, about 0.7%, and Hinduism, about 0.7% as well. And keep in mind, we're talking about, under 1% doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about a population of about 350 million people, these are accounting for many, many individuals within the United States. So don't get fooled by the low percentage. Now moving into Buddhism, there are three major branches of Buddhism. Even though it's concentrated in East Asia and Southeast Asia, places such as Thailand or its neighboring countries, we do see it in the United States as well. And you just saw on the previous slide about 0.7% of the U.S. population is Buddhist. And within Buddhism, there are three major branches. There's Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. And you see them practiced, like any religion, different branches, different denominations are practiced more or less in different areas. So you can see where these sort of link up. Mongolia is known for Vajrayana Buddhism. That's the dominant branch there. But then the others you can see in Tibet as well. They share the same faith. But then in China, Japan, Korea, Mahayana, and in mainland Southeast Asia, so before you get into all of those archipelagos or island nations in mainland Southeast Asia and in Sri Lanka, it's Theravada. And here's a map just kind of showing you a little bit more about that. So you can take a look there. So moving into Islam. Islam has, as we mentioned in section 4.1, this large area of predominance stretching from West Africa all the way over to Southeast Asia. And it goes back to the diffusion patterns that were implemented at the beginning of Islam and as it continued to evolve over the years. Southwest Asia today, or what is commonly referred to as the Middle East, it's really Southwest Asia, is the region in which Islam dominates the most. And it makes sense, right? That's the hearth, the Arabian Peninsula. Saudi Arabia is actually the hearth of Islam, so it makes sense that it would be strongest there. However, all of the most populous Muslim nations, meaning the countries in which you find the most Muslims, are Indonesia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India. And all of those are outside of the Middle East. So it's kind of interesting to see how the religion has evolved over time. And there are two major branches you need to know within the religion of Islam. They are Sunni and Shia. Now, Sunnis make up a vast majority, close to 90% of the world Muslim population practices Sunni Islam. But Shiites comprise a majority in a couple specific countries. You can see here on this map in red, that is the country of Iran. So Iran is really the, I don't want to say the hearth, but it is certainly the home of Shiites throughout the world. And it is seen as the really the central location of Shia Islam. But when you look around the globe, Sunni Islam completely dominates. North Africa, throughout the Sahara, East Africa, most of the Arabian Peninsula up into Turkey, and then over in Central Asia into India and down into Indonesia, Sunni Islam is the most predominantly practiced. And there is a really stark contrast between the two. So most countries are either one or the other, although you do see some pockets here, say in Afghanistan or down here in Pakistan or Yemen, where there are clusters of Shiite Muslims as well. And then this blue area that you see in Oman here is Ibadi Islam, and it's a really unique branch in itself, but I should say denomination, but that is really centrally located in Oman. And then you can see a little bit closer here some of the denominations within Sunni Islam, some of the denominations within Shiite Islam, and then, as I mentioned, Ibadi Islam as well. Here's a little bit of the diffusion. We will look more at the spread of Islam in section 4.3, but it's kind of cool to see this story, right? And it started, the hearth of Islam is Medina and Mecca is really known globally as the center of Islam today. It's where the HuG is made. The pilgrimage that many Muslims make each year is made to Mecca, and we'll dive more into that throughout the unit, but it's kind of cool to see, how this religion came to dominate this region of the world. It was really through diffusion, right? And we'll talk about that specific diffusion in later sections of this unit. So what about ethnic religions? First of all, ethnic religions, remember, are really oriented toward specific cultural groups, right? So within ethnic religions, we tend to see those religions are very clustered, meaning they're really, really densely populated in specific areas, right? And adherents to these religions usually share a lot, shared history, a shared language. They have a shared destiny. Now, Hinduism is by far the largest ethnic religion in the world, and it is heavily concentrated in India and Nepal. But also keep in mind, in India, just because we do have so many Hindus there, it's easy to forget that there are literally hundreds of millions of Muslims there as well. And we will talk about some of the conflict that those two groups have had in India over the years. Hundreds of millions of people also practice very localized indigenous religions in many parts of Eastern and Southeastern Asia. So we can't forget about those. In Africa, there are about 35 million people who practice folk religions. Okay, some of these folk religions, and many of them actually, are based on animism, where elements of the natural world are animated, have spirits, have conscious life, right? So nature is very much embedded in these folk religions and many indigenous religions as well. And remember, in Unit 3, we talked about how folk culture is really, really intricately tied into the natural world and natural resources and the environment. And that's what we're seeing here with folk religion as well. In China, a lot of syncretic religions are found. And what this means is that people will synchronize different religions, right? So taking aspects of Confucianism or Taoism or Buddhism and implementing some of those different ideas into sort of their own individualized religion, right? Looking at the distribution of some other religions, okay, smaller religions tend to cluster, right, within one country or within one region, and we kind of saw that in section 4.1. But looking at some specific groups here, Sikhism. Sikhs are mostly found in the Punjab region of India. You've got Judaism, right, and Jews are mostly found in two countries, Israel and the United States, very clustered in those two locations. We talked a little bit about Israel yesterday, and so you can understand why Judaism would be heavily concentrated in Israel. The country was essentially created for Jews, right, in the post-World War II era. Shintoism is really commonly found in Japan, heavily clustered in Japan. So it's kind of interesting to see some of these smaller but fascinating religions and where they tend to be found. And you can see on the map here some of those faiths and where they are isolated sort of too, or where we tend to see clusters of those particular religions. The distribution of Judaism, as I mentioned, is really heavily split between Israel and the United States. So Israel has about 40% of the world's Jewish population. The United States has about 41%. So we have actually just about as much, a little bit more, than the entire country of Israel. We have more of a Jewish population than the country that was essentially created for the Jewish population. So it's kind of interesting to see that dynamic. And then another 10% found in Europe. And then we see Jewish people scattered throughout Canada, Latin America, Asia as well, and South Pacific, but mostly Israel and the United States. The Baha'i population throughout the world as well, you can see, is predominantly found in two particular locations, one being India and really South Asia, and then the other being the United States. And so I hope you're seeing a common theme here, whether it's Baha'i or Judaism. We tend to see that the United States is a very welcoming place for religions that aren't commonly found in other parts of the world, right? And that could be because of the religious freedom that we enjoy in the United States, or it could be because history has deemed it that way. But we're going to see more about that diffusion in Section 3. Okay, everybody, that's it for Section 4.2. Always really cool to look at all of those individual respective faiths and see how they're a little bit unique from one another, and also where they're predominantly found around the world. In Section 4.3, we're going to see the diffusion of these religions, how they ended up in the places that they are today. But for today, to go with Section 4.2, all I'm asking is for you to complete the 4.2 checkpoint in Buzz, just to make sure that you are walking away with the most important information from this section. All right, thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate all the hard work. Keep it up, and I will see you next time. Thanks.